Hello, and welcome to the video where we're going to talk about how to strategically evaluate your business through a buyer's eyes. We're going to focus on the strategy first, and then rest assured we'll get to economics second. But it's very important for you to understand the strengths and weaknesses that you might have in your business from how a buyer would see them. Because armed with that information, even before you go to market, you can take a look and understand what you need to do in order to get a premium valuation. So we're going to talk about the differences between them. Then we're going to talk about what I call the strategic assessment pyramid, where you can see the different elements of strategy that are important. And then finally, we'll let you strategically assess your business and then design a strategy for how to improve it. Okay. The first thing is understanding the difference between a financial evaluation and a strategic evaluation. A financial evaluation is things like your profit margins, your growth rates, how diversified are you, how large is your earnings. But if you'll notice along the right, there's a bunch of different categories that we're looking at. Sellable, profitable, repeatable, scalable, diversifiable, and defensible. These are all things that if you do them right can drive a good financial evaluation, but they're really the core behind it. Okay, the way that the strategic assessment pyramid works is like this. These are the big 6 criteria that are ultimately going to be determining your worth. And in the case of some of them, if you don't have them, you might not even be sellable at all. So let's start at the top of the pyramid, sellable. Is your business sellable? And what we mean by that is not are you sellable to the buyer, but will your buyer be able to sell that business? Because the number one rule that we always talk about in private equity is never buy a company without having a clear path to how you're going to get out of it. This means things like if your buyer can't exit that same business, they're going to put more than 50% of their chips off the table, and therefore they're not going to hit their yield. So they have to believe that they can sell the business that they're buying. And some of the components of saleability are things like how compelling are you as a company? Are you simple to explain? I always like the adage, every question that a buyer has reduces the price. Is there any career risk in your business? Meaning, is there something going on that could cause your buyer to get fired? Things like gray hat tactics that they didn't catch or other types of things like that. And then finally, there's something called, does it have hair on it? And what that means is that's like an investment banking term that talks a lot about, let's say maybe I've got, 4 different owners in this business. One of them is based overseas and has a complex tax structure. The other one is based up in Alaska, and they don't know if they really want to sell the business and they want to hold it. The one in California wants to sell it, and one of them's a product expert that has the IP. You get my point. It gets more and more complicated. That means that it's harder for the buyer to believe that they're going to be able to sell it when they go out to sell to private equity or do an initial public offering or something along those lines. So first and foremost, if they don't believe you're sellable, you're not getting anywhere else on the pyramid. Second of all, profitability. In this market where you're in an inventory-based business, which is different than if you're a SaaS company, you have to have some level of profitability. If you're below 15% profitability, it's going to be very difficult to sell, very much difficult to sell for a premium valuation. If you can get to 20%, that's good. If you can get to 25%, that's very good. And I say or more, and you're outstanding or you're great and you're going to get a premium valuation is all the way down to the EBITDA, you're generating more than 30% profitability. Those are rules of thumb that can vary by category and by growth rates, but it's a general way to think about the business. The second thing is, the larger the profitability on the business, oftentimes you can get a little bit more money, but you have to have the growth and the profitability. But the size of the profitability allows a larger buyer to be able to pay a slightly higher multiple. They generally prefer lower volatility. So while you may look at seasonality as, oh, this is great, I really do very well, during the holidays, for example, to a buyer's perspective, that can be seen as more difficult to inventory plan. So things that don't have variability in terms of seasonality, or if you haven't had a lot of volatility due to listings or competitive shutdowns, those types of things are valued. Next, if I'm sellable and I'm profitable, I want to know if that's going to be repeatable. This is an essential question that a buyer is asking because they need to understand the future of your business. Repeatability can be in terms of products. Will the brand continue to have more products in the particular niche that you're serving? Or have you already reached your limit? Is there launch repeatability? Over your last 5 products, what was the success rate? And are you essentially launching more and more different variations on a theme into an existing niche and brand? Or do you have to keep coming up with quote unquote new ideas? Is the optimization repeatable, or has it started to decline over time? Now, you may have recurring revenue, but for most people, if they're selling on Amazon, they don't. But do you have purchase repeatability? Maybe we had a business that we helped exit. They had 24% of sales were from the same customer. A high percentage here starts to make it look like the business is more repeatable. And finally, they're going to want to know for the repeatability, do you have your procedures outlined so that they can easily take over the business and continue to repeat its success? If you're sellable, profitable, and that profitability is repeatable, then we want to understand how scalable it is. An example of repeatability is if you're black hat and you don't do any black hat because your brand is so strong. Now I believe that I'm repeatable and I'm on my way to scalability because, as this quote says, I don't do black hat because my customers just like the products I come out with. And the products get great reviews because our package design and our listing optimization meets what their needs are. And when you have a seller that does that, they're going to sit there and say, wow, not only are you repeating your success, but you are now bridging that repeatability to scalability. Scalability is simply, what is the total addressable market or the TAM of this business? What's the universe for this particular brand? Is it a broad enough brand that I could add 50 to 75 different product SKUs into it? Or is it very much a niche brand that might only have 20 or 30? Now, a total addressable market that's larger is oftentimes can be better, but that doesn't mean don't be very focused in your niche. It just might mean that you have to understand the trade-off between focus and TAM. Next up for scalability is what other markets or other channels can we expand into? And scalability also brings in the concept of cash. If I'm going to double the revenue for this business, how much working capital am I going to need? Because that's a key component of scalability. If I double the size of the business, do I need to scale the team? Or is it hyper efficient to where I can probably put 2 to 4 times as much revenue with a similar size team? And then finally, are there any bottlenecks? What constraints are there that might be currently limiting me for growth? Once I'm sellable, I'm profitable, I'm repeatable, and I'm scalable, next up is, am I diversifiable? How can I lower the risk for a buyer to increase their risk-adjusted return? Do I have any SKU concentration? If I could have less than 10% in any one SKU, that would be ideal. But if you start to get more than 20%, if you get 40 to 50 or 60% in any one SKU and that thing goes down, you're not very diversifiable. Now, there are certain buyers, because they're diversified, are willing to purchase you. But please recognize that in general, if you can bring the diversification to the table, you can get a more premium multiple. Second of all, how volatile are your SKUs? That also means the more volatile it is, the more I need that diversification. Can I grow my way out of product diversification? In essence, by that I mean, can I continue to release more and more products? So maybe today I do have a hero SKU that's out there, but I've already got a plan in my business that I'm going to release 5 different new product expansions to bring down that concentration risk. I can also diversify by different Amazon marketplaces, or I can diversify by direct-to-consumer, retail, or other types of channels. And the net result of the business is, after I acquire it with a buyer, how much can I grow and expand it so that my risk goes down? Because if we remember from when we were talking before, the risk going down increases the yield to risk ratio, a key part of a premium valuation. And then finally, if I'm sellable, I'm profitable, I'm repeatable, I'm scalable, I'm diversifiable, how defensible am I? The key question to ask. How big is the moat around my business? And the bigger is better for the buyers. What can I do to expand the moat and, in essence, what I call put a dragon in the castle to keep everyone out? Here's some different types of moats. I can have just a fundamentally better value proposition or a better product that maybe I'm able to buy at a lower cost. I've got the #1 supplier in China and I get the best quality product for a very, very competitive price. I might have a differentiated product where everybody's selling one type of a product, but I've looked at the bad reviews that are out there. I've found a twist on a theme. I've custom tooled my own solution, and I've got a product improvement over the marketplace. Do I have any unique intellectual property, which could be technology, it could be brand, it could be other types of things. And this is not as common, but if I did have some patents, do I have any patents that help the defensibility of my business? So hopefully, as you can see here, these are the types of ways that a buyer is going to analyze your business. I call it beyond the numbers. And finally, exclusivity. This is a huge one if you don't have it right now, really focusing on suppliers that in some way, shape, or form can offer you some type of exclusivity. Now that you understand the 6 different criteria that are out there for your particular business, it's time to assess and improve them, oftentimes before you go to market. Don't worry, virtually no business is going to score a 10 on all of these. The goal is to start pointing you in the right direction and to point you not in just the direction about getting your profitability up, but getting the sustainability. If I was going to talk about what the combination of all of these are, it really is a sustainable competitive advantage in the marketplace. These are going to be the criteria that you're going to be judged, so you might as well learn them early on and embrace the challenge that the chain is only as good as the weakest link and have a balanced strategic plan. Many people will focus, for example, on profitability at the expense of scalability or at the expense of diversifiability, and they have to recognize that a premium valuation depends on all of them. Your true strategy is how you can achieve progress in each one of these areas. And that's different. Most people think of strategy, I call it's really advanced tactics. They'll say, I have a strategy to improve my cost per click. Well, that's not really a strategy. A strategy is where do you fit in the competitive landscape and how can you improve that competitive positioning. So the action item is to go into the strategic assessment and improvement grid in the workbook and give yourself a cold, hard assessment of your business today, and then design over the next 90, 180, 1, 2, or 3 years how you plan to improve on these criteria. Because trust me, when you get in front of a buyer, they may not label them the same, but essentially these are the questions that they're asking. Okay. Now, you might have gone through that and not felt very good about your assessment. Wow, I don't know if I'm very sellable. I'm struggling with profitability. I'm struggling a little bit with differentiation. I'm not very defensible. And as I always like to say, the day that you finally see the true obstacles to your life success, that's not the day to be downtrodden, even if you are a little bit overwhelmed. It's really the day to be happy, because today would then finally be the first day that you can start taking in the action in the right direction toward achieving a premium valuation. So, before we get into the financials, you've now seen how buyers are going to strategically look at your business, and armed with this knowledge, you can look at how you can better run your business, whether you sell or not. As we always say, what's good for selling a business is good for running it. And also, you're starting to develop an eyes wide open exit mentality by looking at your business through the lens of the buyer's eyes. Thank you.